joining in online. I would first like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet upon today, the Gadigal people, no, the Darug people of the, wait, I've been too many places today. So sorry. Thank you. Of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty has never been ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Okay, and now welcome to our May Slam. This is our second ever hybrid slam as well. It's really exciting. I am your host, Daphne. Couple of things to go through so you know how this is all going to run. Is this anyone's first time at a poetry slam? Woo! Woohoo! We got some newbies. Okay, awesome. Okay, so usually when a poet performs, if something clicks within you, a specific line, you click out and you let them know. People online can use the chat as well to let us know what they think. Another thing is, usually at poetry slams, after someone performs, they get a number out of 10, a score, but at Westside, numbers can go to hell. I think I'm done with numbers ascribing value because it's all subjective anyway. So instead what we have are lines, and Paul, who is helping me graciously because my sister is not here today, is going to be sharing them. So instead we have sentences you can give your poet. And the theme today is May. I just made some May puns, but you could say, I'll subscribe to your mail if you maybe want to hear from a poet again. You can say, I elect you mayor of Westside, because you're like, you are the best person to represent us. You can say, may I have this dance, if maybe you really like the way someone moved and the way they were speaking was like music, so you really want to commend their performance ability. And there's also nothing wrong with not vibing with a poem and thinking it could do with some improvement, in which you can say, could do with maintenance. Thank you. I put a lot of thought into that. Do you like my doodles? Okay, am I missing anything? I don't think so. Okay, so usually I do begin, I'm like a sacrificial lamb, but the poem I want to share today is like 6 minutes long, so instead I will go to the end, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be throwing up an open micer up here, and I have this beautiful blue ball, which I'm going to shake, and we shall see who will emerge. Drum roll, drum roll. All right. Our first person is Michael Collins, who is joining us from online.
3 minutes, plenty of time, half that time. You may embrace a wounded soul on his journey to the end, though he may tax your precious patience. Take and then pretend. You may forgive his very presence, though it reeks of his disgrace. You may regret that you ever let him inside this your sacred place. You may believe in future loving, of peace of mind dispelling hate. You may wish for the trust which conquers pain, though this man may not relate. You may leave behind a wounded soul. You may or may not return. You may or may not change your mind, and he will learn what he may learn. Okay, that's the first one. And the second one, these two poems are about the same person. You kind of wish that you don't meet certain people, and then the silver lining is you get the right poems about them. Yeah. The last time I saw him, he was denying any blame. The last time I saw him, he was off and sunset bound. The last time I saw him, he was a thief in the night. The last time I saw him, he was covering his tracks. The last time I saw him, he was two-faced and fork-tongued. The last time I saw him, he just laughed and turned away. Yes, the last time I saw him, he would not listen to a word. Yes, the last time I saw him, he could not look me in the eye. The next time I see him, I shall seek clarification. Oh yes, the next time I see him, I will want answers. Thank you.
I still call Australia home. I've stayed in shacks all long since pulled down, in Camaray, Lidcombe and Old Batterstown. Truly never far have I roamed, seemingly content to call Australia home. My mind is ever travelling, it yearns to be free. Jaipur, Chandigarh, Agra, Varanasi, Isfahan, Konya, Athens and Rome, but my body stays stuck at home. I made my choices, or have they made me? If I chose others, then who would I be? I'd rather have Sue, my kids in a home, than to travel all my life alone.
I have two poems here. The first one's called Fish Out of Water. I enter the cold, murky water, shivering. First my feet, then ankles, knees, waist, sap. Cold, slimy tentacles wrap around me like those of a jellyfish. But it feels different. It's tangled. I look down at my feet and see plastic bags and fishing line tangled up around me and more filth just drifting through the current. Suddenly, I feel a stabbing pain in my left lower leg. I start to panic. Oh no, I've been bitten by a shark. I swim frantically to shore to get a better look at my shark bite. Oh no, I can't look. There's a tooth in my bite. Hang on, shark teeth don't shine. I look more closely at my gash and see not a shark tooth, but a triangular-shaped piece of glass. I think of the sea creatures swimming in this man-made filth, and I wonder, is this what it feels like to be a fish out of water? Here's my second piece. I am a tree, almost defenseless against humanity. People cut me down. This is my second piece. I am a tree, almost defenseless against humanity. People cut me down for paper because I am a tree. But they just get lamer and lamer when they cut me down for paper because I'm the one that breathes the air and always makes it... What great vapor. After growing into a great big forest, I am now shrinking, for people are cutting me down. But this forest isn't any forest. It's the Amazon rainforest. They are cutting down this forest to make a great big forest, surrounded by a city, leaving nowhere to replace me. Some species have disappeared, but some are spreading like a wildfire. Speaking of fires, over 18.5 million hectares of Australia was burned by the Black Summer bushfires, along with 5,900 buildings destroyed, all because of lightning strikes caused by climate change, and humans being irresponsible with campfires, or carelessly throwing a lit cigarette out of the window and onto the side of the road, fueling a scrub fire and killing more of me. Others are bulldozing me for wood to build a house where I used to stand, because money is more important than me, a tree. Humanity has a lot to answer for as they choke and burn me through climate change or cut me down and protest me, fueling company profits and overpopulation. Also, they can make a few dollars, but at what cost? Thank you.
So this isn't actually a poem so much as a rant, and it's taken from my blog, but quite some time ago. Because for anyone playing at home, you might notice that we have a pretty shit Prime Minister, but he wasn't always the most shit Prime Minister. He's now the most shit Prime Minister, but one before, Tony Abbott, one before, he was worse. He wasn't as bad, but at the time we thought he was the worst. But anyway, I digress because this is what I wrote for him. Dear Mr. Abbott, I'd like to tell you a story. The football commentator Warren Ryan tells the story of a player who marched up to a referee he believed to be biased. What would you do if I called you a cheat, he asked. I'd send you off, the referee replied. What would you do if I thought you were a cheat, the player asked. I can't do anything about what you think. Then I think you're a cheat, said the player. Mr. Abbott, we've all seen what happens when someone in the press says something nasty about one of your team. Your friend Joe Hockey has just this week filed papers against Fairfax for suggesting that maybe he was selling his influence. Because of the evidence. It's a little like the words Joe himself tweeted in July last year to suggest that Kevin Rudd was for sale. What were those words again? Oh yes, access to Rudd at a price, fact. But I digress. As I say, we all know what happens when someone criticises you or one of your team, because it hurts, right? You file papers against them because it really hurts. Right now, I'm actually not in the best place financially to defend myself against saying bad stuff about you, Mr. Abbott. And with Joe needing the lawyers to get heavy with one of the 3 independent mainstream media outlets in Australia, I doubt that you want the trouble either. That's why I'm going to save us both some trouble by not actually calling you anything. That's right, I'm not going to call you a liar, even though I think you are. I think you told everyone one thing before the election but had no intention of following through. I think you and Joe Hockey confected this entire budget emergency so that you could pursue your long game, which is to help the big end of town get bigger without interference from those pesky peasants. I think you deliberately denigrated the economists here and overseas who tried to tell us that the budget emergency wasn't. And I think you lied when you told us that John Howard's poll numbers also fell after his first budget, when in fact they did the precise opposite. Likewise, I wouldn't dream of saying that you're an ideologue, but I do think that. Nor would I say that someone's invoking Godwin's law is exactly the right thing to do. Something else I'm not going to say is that you definitely found it funny when that retired lady called you at the radio station and told you that she has to work on a sex line to pay the bills. But I think you found that funny. I think you found that distressing and degrading story quite funny, mostly because of the smiling and the guilty look at the camera when you remembered what a camera does, which is look at you. And I think it made you look creepy because I think you're creepy. I also think you found really odd parts of Joe's budget funny because I saw you laughing and grinning through the sad bits, which was most of it. And I think you looked like a petulant jock when Bill Shorten was giving his budget reply speech. And Mr. Abbott, I wouldn't dream of saying that you're definitely a coward for not turning up at Deakin University because you're frightened of some students, but I definitely think you are, just as I also think you don't give a shit about students or Australia's higher education system as a whole, or in fact education in general. Again, just to be clear, I'm not saying that you are happy to take your free university education thanks to the reforms brought in by that awful socialist Gough Whitlam, even though you weren't actually an Australian citizen at the time, only to be equally happy to make this generation of students pay more. But I do think you were happy to take your free education, and I think you're a complete fucking bastard for making it so much harder for young Australians to get educated because enough to land a good job and eventually join you in your leafy beachside electorate. Some of the other things I'm not saying about you, because lawyers, are these: that you're scared of gay people, that you're either oblivious to or willfully ignorant of the overwhelming evidence in support of the idea that climate change is being caused by people, that you want to undermine state health and education so you can blame the state governments for the inevitable GST hike, that you don't care at all that much for women, Indigenous people, asylum seekers or the disabled, and that you keep knocking back invitations to be on 7:30 and Q&A because you're between skins and it takes so much time to rub against the corner of the desk before peeling off that last layer of your skin. But I do think that all of the above might be true. That's right, Mr. Abbott. I wouldn't dream of saying that you're quite possibly the second worst Prime Minister we've ever had. A man who is a terrible leader and a gormless, cowardly, hypocritical, gargoylean bully. But be in no doubt that I do think each of those things. I also think you should read something other than the Murdoch press, except that your personal numbers are now unsalvageably in the toilet, and resign. But you won't. You definitely won't. And that much I definitely do know. Thank you. I shall waste no time reading your reply.
I am a speck in the universe, my voice loud as I scream my heart out to the moon and the stars, the only things that ever hear me in my darkness, yet they show me the way, always stay. Each experience flashing before my eyes as I clutch at the good, process the bad, lament in all things loved and lost, missing moments and people as I heal, regrow. Knowing nothing happens by chance, each experience important and divine in timing, just as the stars in the sky were scattered, yet precisely placed in their prominent position on the canvas of the galaxy. I am fire and ice. Silence broken with the crack of a flint as the lighter fires, staring at the flame, my eyes frozen in focus, melt as the tears stream down my face in my own silent vigil to my pain, a self-sacrifice as the flame licks my skin before the smiley of self-harm burns into my arm, each scar unique like a snowflake, capturing the pain that fades into my skin as time melts it away, yet like a dot to dot I can connect them all, painting a picture of all that broke me, that made me. See, I am a person. I am more than the sum of the things that hurt me, that broke me. regretting nothing and respecting everything, holding space for everyone because I'm worth it and so are they, sharing the good and the bad, the inside and the out, using every ounce of strength to hold myself up on the wall for everyone to see, sharing all I've learned, how I've healed, in the hope that it helps someone, saves someone, gives someone a new perspective. Far from a perfect picture, I'm torn apart by wounds and bruises, held together by scars and stitches, but despite everything, I am uniquely me, and I am art. Thank you.
You are art indeed, both helping me out and a great poet in his own right. Thank you so much, Paul. All right, judges, what we thinking?
I've got one piece, and it's very new, and I don't have a title yet. I got lost on a school excursion at the national park. Fear comes over me. I need to find my class before day turns to dark. Carefully stepping, carefully listening for any sound they make. Looking for my class between the trees so I can again be safe. I hear a loud thump, thump, thump coming from behind me. I turn, crouch, squint my eyes to see what I can see. I slowly move toward the thump, stumble over and hurt my knee. The biggest, strangest beast I've seen is staring back through the trees. Feet like a lion, full of claws, legs like a leopard, fast and pouncy, arms like an octopus, grippy and wavy, body like a bear, broad and strong, teeth like a tiger, sharp and long, eyes like a wolf, piercing and wide, horn like a rhino, protecting its head, ears like a rabbit, pointy and tall, fur like a husky, keeping it warm, colour of a bat, black as the night, tall as a giraffe, filling me with fright. I go to get up, yell in pain, scream in fear. The beast has seen me, and in 2 steps it's so near. Its octopus arms pick me up and fling me into the air. Its tiger teeth catch me. I feel a chomp, land here, land there. I'm lying in blood. Not quite dead yet, but just about dead. Yeah, dead.
So, usually after our open mic section, that's when we have a break and then we have our features. But are we okay to keep going because it's been shorter? Okay, awesome. So, first we're going to be having our support feature who performed last month, an Australian poet all the way from Finland. And at the end of the night, I got my judges together, we huddled together and we're like, who stood out? And I'd like to say that was Natalie.
Oh, geez, I love seeing my face on a big screen. That's excellent. Thank you. More to the point, it's an honour to be with you this evening and today. I'm really excited. I just want to quickly acknowledge the traditional owners in which I beam into, on the land in which I beam into, and also the open micers who just performed. What a brilliant lineup and a great variety. So well done, everyone. I also just want to acknowledge this painting behind me. It was actually, I'm deliberately decided to perform in here. This is my room, my bedroom. And this painting is in recognition of Ewan Damu. It was painted by an elder who I knew when I lived in Alice Springs. So it's painted by Lola Brown and it tells about the water chukurpa dreaming. And I wanted to do that because Ewan Damu are currently grieving the loss of someone who was brutally murdered by police. I don't mind saying. Sue me if you if the Australian government gets hold of that. But anyway, let's get on with the pieces. My first piece tonight, actually, Elijah touched on the themes as well, so it's quite fitting today. And I wrote this during the bushfires in 2019, 2020. I felt really homesick at the time, and so this came out then. It's called My country is burning. Eucalypt sweats from the leaves, and I'm drunk on the unbearable heat. I meditate in the stench and absorb it. The sun's rays break in the dry riverbed, and my own path crosses the caterpillar dreaming. Wisdom's recorded in oral tradition. Ochre shapes on the rock face. Footsteps trace, sprayed in paint, bearing the old ways. Creation recorded, wisdom's carved, first people's spiritual guide. Stories told across the skies. Rite, ceremony, wisdom, initiate. And this is all bigger than me. And this is all bigger than me. Scratched fossils cracked wide open. I find I'm digging for my own survival. I struggle to retain the ground I walk on, but the sand is forgiving and moulds to me. Wake to hear the roar of the engine. I shake to see a digger with intention. Backs break when bulldozed with aggression. Dig pits out pockets where ancient worlds hide in. Crushing petroglyphs of wisdom. Destroying old world origin. Dominating with ignorance. Fracking fractures the earth's crust, forcing out our heart's gas. Burning methods lost all control. Old growth forest has lost its soul, like drilling rigs, insensitive coral, like tearing down Gondwana land's hold, like endangering our marsupials, like taking babies from their mama's fold, like creating a law for genocide, like following a leader who makes you lie, like following a leader who makes you lie, like following a leader who makes you lie. My country is burning. Fossil fuels light up the horizon. Wasted water rusts the pipelines. Rum's vicious cycle of inheritance captivated are dulled into humility. Ashes beyond ashes, dust burnt to dust. My country is burning. The carbon's expanding. There is no right. No ceremony, no wisdom, dissipate, lost at the coal face. Okay, so thank you. So that's my opening piece. The next is, well, I'll give a little background first. So yeah, I lived in Central Australia for a good few years there in my 20s, and but before that I moved to Australia when I was 11. So I used to live in Papua New Guinea actually until I was about 11, and then I moved to Kalgoorlie in the goldfields in Western Australia, which was a lovely bit of culture shock. So, yeah, I'm going to do a piece about a ghost town of a gold mining town that was just about 50 k's from Kalgoorlie. And my parents took me there when I was 11, and I thought that this must be the end of the world. So I'm now going to share my screen with you and my sound. And I hope you enjoy this piece. I had actually this in my mind. I think this is my first poem I ever wrote. So it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here. Skies, blue and blinding. Leaping out to the horizon, my own cannon for survival. What beautiful weather we have here as I rotate another trip around. Look on the earth, the rubble and the ruins, the brittle bricks all broken and burnt by the sunny sun which we all celebrate on the run. Mistake and romantic imagery of a ghost town in the outbound, back of beyond. Once a thriving gold mining hub, all I see is a mockery of the song, of the cultural identity of man's proud virility. Shard, weathered, dull chunks of glass, hinting at a lively jostling past, the old beer bottles of an era gone full throttle. But I can barely make out a footprint of a single old brick building. The golden era, given the mystery of theatre, becomes lost on the irritable teenager standing disconnected by their folks' vehicle 100 years removed. That distance, though, that empty significance flows, whipping silently across my face and legs. Sharp, icy winds encircle me and push at me, stumbling across the broken, crumbled artifacts, stretching between me and time. So I hope that you could all hear that and see that. I just continued hoping that it was working. So, yeah, good, thanks. There were a few references at the end there. I took a lot of images from the State Library in Perth, West Australia, and the museum also there in West Australia, and some other private websites too. So, yeah, thanks for enjoying that with me. I'm going to do another piece. This is actually sort of in reference to that I'm a little bit mixed up in my cultures and backgrounds, and so I've told you a little bit already about where I'm from, but also my mum's French and my dad's English. So now I'm living in Finland, but it's the Swedish-speaking area of Finland. So just to make it complicated, I hope you're keeping up. This is a little story to tell you all about it. It's called Chameleon. A loaded gun asks her, "Where do you belong?" Change management expert, community covert, international chameleon, dyslexic in origin, packed full of traditions, lost, entangled in conditions, tossed in my repetitive, incessant culture shock, cultivated by a hardcore feminist matriarch with a past left in the dark farmyards near the vineyards of southern France. Rounded out by a kind-hearted father who defied his own destiny, leaving coal mining industry of soot-ridden England. Sought to fill curiosity. Bouncing from continent Europe to Melanesia, Australasia and back again. My mother tongue twice removed is fading away again. My second language gave way, distorted by the wretched dregs of the Aussie rednecks. My third languages, 1 and 2, Pidgin English and Motu gone. But for the handful of go-tos, Finnish and now Swedish have me craving my origins. I fit nowhere and everywhere simultaneously, as I'm saying. You see, I'd love to explain to you about the dislocated sensation of acculturation in my impending modification to the next location, but I think you might get jealous. Need to belong seems to penetrate my motivation for assimilation. Schools up to hear, most of which shaped me to see what not to be. Self-esteem plummeting as no system really fit me. Alien. It's okay, though, if I think of myself as a fish on a bicycle, where the imagery, ironical, maintains my confidential, which gave me soul sensational. The water rises in the pools I swam in at the footstep of my home now drowning. Corrupt systemic pollutants repel me from the corners I used to hide in. Third world existence flail against first world betrayals in the shrill vast hearts, the bastards that bask in their own good fortune. The waterfalls surround and beat down around me, a boom rush of memories exhilarate my freedom. Sun's glance sees me dancing, droplets leap up and greet me, crystal rapids giggle and tease me, and liberty suspends atmospherically. And I look down on a puddle of vast open oceans, of distant commotions, and my passport now gleam from opportunity. It depends how you look at it. See? International citizen. So when I ask you, where are you from? I don't mean where do you belong. I mean, what shaped you? What makes you? How did you become the being that you are, and where do your hopes take you? Thank you. And if there's any time, I've got one small one left. If I haven't really kept time, so you need to tell me. What? Another one? Okay. This is a short one. It's actually inspired by a beat poet, Roger Robinson, like a Jamaican beat poet in the UK called Roger Robinson, and it's a piece of the same name. So it's called "And If I Speak of Paradise." So, and if I speak of paradise, then I'm speaking about the smell of damp wood. And if I speak of the smell of damp wood, then I'm speaking about hot rain. And if I speak of hot rain, then I'm speaking about my childhood. And if I speak of my childhood, then I'm speaking of lost worlds. And if I speak of lost worlds, then I'm speaking about crouching down on the forest floor. And if I speak of crouching down on the forest floor, then I'm speaking about the croak of tree frogs. And if I'm speaking of the croak of tree frogs, then I'm speaking about the sunlight breaking through. And if I speak of the sunlight breaking through, then I'm speaking about the bird of paradise. And if I speak of the bird of paradise, then I'm speaking about paradise. And if I speak of paradise, yeah, how's the timing going?
Oh, do you have something else?
I can fit one in.
I think we might. How do we feel? Do we want more? Yeah. Okay, we want more.
Okay, last one.
Okay, awesome.
This one's called the Doc Martin, and it's fairly short, and we'll finish with that. Doc Martin is a boot, is a footstep, is a journey of worn creases, broken casing and stretched shoelaces, tracing the shape of cobblestones, slowing her down in a small French village. is lost in translation, is forgotten pronunciation of ancestor voices curling around dark corners. In farmyards with a well in the centre, looking down into the well, into darkness and not daring to let go, is letting go of the stone and getting chills in the echoes. Is not looking back, not waiting for the stone to drop. Is looking back and feeling the drop in the crack in the well wall and the broken steps at the church where her parents got married. Is the yellow in the photographs, is the dog-eared memories of childhood dreams, is the warm summer puddles in the splash made in joy of the slapping sensation running down the bitumen. Is the barefoot warrior, is innocence settling into independence, is travelling the world in a pair of Doc Martens. And that piece was influenced by The Blue Dress by Saeed Jones. And I'll love yous and leave yous there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm so glad we got to hear that. Thank you for bringing it your all. I was not expecting a nice musical slideshow, and even your voice gets really musical sometimes, and I love that. Thank you. All right, now we're going to be going on to a feature. Yes, the man in the corner. I had the pleasure of watching this man's Australian Poetry Slam journey from his first kind of heat to the Sydney final, to the New South Wales final, to the national final, and I have been trying to vie for the title of like #1 fan ever since. So if you guys become fans of him, I was first there. Okay, cool. Please give it up for Tom Kaldor.
Thank you so much for having me here. I also want to start by echoing the acknowledgement of country, and I want to extend it by just sharing the thought that Indigenous culture shared in groups like this came together as community and shared stories and valued spoken words. So I think that's a cool thing that we're echoing as a respect and acknowledgement of that culture. Now it feels too high. I want to give a little bit of context before I jump into some poetry, because that's what you're allowed to do when you're a feature. You go to slams and they're like, you can't give context or preamble or whatever, but when you're a feature, you're allowed to talk. So sucked in and listen to me. So basically, I'm a bit of a purist of the performance side of performance poetry. That means I like to know my shit before I take to the stage. However, preparations for tonight's fine event were not quite exactly as I planned. And you'll probably be counting this, around Anzac Day, I had a run-in finally with the dreaded virus. People like checking their calendars like, Anzac Day plus 14. I am no longer infectious, so no stress, everyone. But I also have a toddler at home, and I don't get a lot of time to write poetry as a result of that, or I have to find sneaky, moonlight hours. And I, before having COVID, was like, COVID will be amazing. I'll be in isolation. Dana will be looking after the baby. I'll be in bed. I won't be that sick because I'm triple vaxxed, and I'll be able to write shitloads of poetry. It wasn't really like that for me. So not only did Dana have to do all of that and look after the toddler, but I was pretty flawed in bed, and I'm only just now feeling a little bit myself. So glad to be back here. I'm not as prepared as I would. The second piece of context, which I think is important, this is all just building stacks of goodwill before he shares his lesser poetry. The second bit of context I think is worth saying is, today is my birthday. So yeah, underprepared, is his birthday, base level, lots of goodwill before he shares his poetry is the kind of point of that preamble. I, like Daphne shared, had the pleasure of meeting her because she gives a lot to another poetry community called Word Travels, or the Australian Poetry Slam, and immediately was struck by the fact that Daphne is someone who gives so much energy and so much effort and so much support to this community. So I was super stoked when she asked me to come along and be a feature at this event. It was an event that I hadn't been to before, which I felt a little bit uncomfortable coming to feature, because I would have preferred to see like what the vibe is. Now I know the vibe is the amazing performance of the Cohn family, which is awesome, and Nordic poets with strong Australian accents coming through. So I didn't know exactly what to share, but I thought we're 10 days out from the election, so why don't I do some political poetry? So I know there'll be at least like one person appreciating it up the back there. If Auspol isn't your thing, then you might want to just like tap into some headphones or something. But I'm going to start with a poem about social media, which kind of I think is political, but you know, you guys can judge it, but we'll hear. And the story, this is the final bit of backstory, I promise. I will do some poetry. This is like the world's best stalling technique. This is actually based on a poem that was written over 1,200 years ago by a Chinese poet called Bai Jui. I came across in a book by Linda Javen. I believe Linda Javen did an event with WestWords a couple of months ago, so like full circle, which is Amazing History of China. Bai Jui wrote this poem, and I shared it at a few poetry events I did. 2 poetry events ago, I shared this poem as it was because I loved how something written 1,200 years ago felt like it was written about Instagram. But then I decided, actually, I want to rewrite this poem and make it about Instagram. But I'm going to start with the original. So this is the only poem I will share tonight that is not written by me. So this is by Jui. Those who speak know nothing. Those who know are silent. Those words, I'm told, were uttered by Lao Tzu. If we're to believe that he himself was someone who knew, why did he end up writing a book of 5,000 words? So that's the original. 1,250 years later, the imitation. Don't believe the posts. Those who are happiest have deleted their Instagram accounts. I saw that mantra come up on my feed, at Daily Affirmations, 1.1 million following. It was a slow-burning candle, but I had ample time to reflect on that handle, and once I stepped it through like a sandal, it left my head soupy like Campbell's, because if I'm meant to believe that the person who runs at Daily Affirmations knows anything about happiness, well, why did they end up posting daily on Instagram? You. So to complete the segue from social media, which is a little bit political, into the full political, here's a poem about a run-in I had with someone who is at best like social media type celebrity, and at most dangerous is someone who's trying to become a politician. So, and this thing's pretty cool for all the poets out there, by the way. It's like helps you hold your phone. So if you're looking for poetry accessories for your phone, choose this thing. All right. Gather round, everyone. It's story time for the masses. And when I pour out my words, they flow smooth and sweet like molasses. Shake things up when I speak. There's no need for maracas. My tales take you far away like you flew to Caracas. Okay, now that you're all feeling nice and convivial, thanks to my rhymes, which were tight but trivial, it's time to cut to the chase, like I snipped the umbilical. Yeah, it's crunch time, like my mouth's full of cereal. But for this poem that I'm about to muster, I'm going to need some trust from you, because just like a Hollywood blockbuster, this one's based on a true story. The other week, I saw Pete Evans. You know that famous chef turned infamous cooker-upperer of misinformation? You know that B-grade, preach. You know that B-grade celebrity where the B stands for BS at best, but best believe it'll get worse. You know that My Kitchen Rules ruler who now wants to rule a kitchen that we call the Australian Parliament, right there from the fringes with Pauline and Craig? Yeah, you know the guy. Well, I saw him the other week. And maybe I was starstruck, or maybe the stars above struck me with an urge to tell him what I really thought about his dangerous views, so I rolled up to him and I said, "Hey, are you Pete Evans?" And then he turned to me. Blue eyes, some of the most beautiful I've ever seen. Skin that could put a tanning salon out of business, and just for a moment I thought, oh no, I'm lost to the Lizard King. Then I remembered why I was there and what I had to do, and I knew I couldn't kick things off with an offensive position, so I started with a compliment. Man, I loved you on MasterChef. But then I said, with tears almost in my eyes, like chopping onions, not to chop and change the topic, but the topic on the top of my brain. And the reason I came over here was to explain that I'm worried. No, I'm scared about the views you share. I think they're dangerous. I think that misinformation, the ways we tell and believe stories and call them facts and truth, I think that's the biggest threat to our community right now. Not COVID or climate. Nah, I think the war on reality could be the end of our society. Well, Paul and I, we talked, Paul, I'm just obsessed with the Cohn family. Well, Pete and I, we talked for a while. I don't have time to tell you everything we said, but I won the argument. Trust me, it's a true story. How are we going on the technical front? All good? Some beeping. That's kind of nice punctuation. Beat poetry style. Okay, this one is in the style of rant. So in honor of your previous. And it's one that I've quite literally, and I've seen this a little bit at poetry scenes, and I feel, no, I shouldn't do it. Oh, now it's going to look like I'm withholding some weird information. The whole, like, I finished writing this earlier today. That is true. I did finish writing it earlier today. I'm not trying to get extra kudos. I think it should have been learnt. I'm giving myself denigration. But anyway, here we go. New shit is the... Oh, do we... Oh, sorry. Oh, I've said non-stuff word like a fair few times. Oh, yeah, sorry, Elijah and brother. Yeah, my partner, actually, who's here, actually always tells me to edit my poems for their swear words. And I'm like, nah, it's part of the vernacular. It's for full effect. But generally she's right that it's just gratuitous and adds nothing. So here's to you. All right, this one's called Election Night. And a while back, I don't know if anyone remembers the Eden-Monero by-election. You know what I'm talking about? When Mike Kelly retired, I wrote a poem called By-Election Night. I started with the start of that, rebadged it as Election Night. So here we go. It's nearly election night, and the leaders are pleading about why I'm needing to get my selection right. Which way am I leaning? Which side am I feeling? But I'll be really feeling like I can't wait for June so I can resume normal life. With no more letterbox stuffed with extra food for my snails. No more Palmer shelling out for the front page of my newspapers. No more undercooked policies and raw chicken curries. Yeah, I just can't stomach any more dodgy questions with dodged answers. MPs on PMTV, 7:30 with Lee Sales pushing stale, half-bitten sound bites, sounded out with the focus group, which happened to be made up of vanilla, like some unrepresentative excuse for a tub of Neapolitan ice cream. And I'm no connoisseur, but surely it doesn't take a miracle to win when the media's got your back and they're back to gotcha media so they can tape the gaffes and make it stick like gaffer tape. And if the parachute candidates don't have a soft landing out here in the West, will Christina and Andrew stay anyway? To soak up all that multiculturalism and the buzz of Sydney's second CBD? And maybe I'm a cynic, but somewhere among those multiple cultures and all that business activity, could they not have possibly found some good local candidates? Nah, all the good local candidates are in the marginal seats. The independent variables in the equation that generally looks like half the country gets who they voted for and half don't, and no one can really tell the difference anyway. But if teal is blue plus green, what happens when we finally have climate action? Will we feel more blue once we take away the green? That sounds like a bad teal to me, but still, I'll probably surrender to the big spender because a little bit not blue is better than dark blue. And Sharma, I don't mean you, but like karma, when it comes around to it, I can't see you brightening the tone too many hues. Sorry to rant, but it's the season. Yeah, it's election time. And like I said, it's got to my head and I'm fed up with these elected feds who keep their herrings red, their zeppelins led, their enemies in bed, and their integrity commissions dead. That being said, I have the right to rant. And I have the right to vote. Because no matter who gets those 151 seats, every single one of them, almost, would defend my rights. Yeah, I'm over it, but I ain't leaving. Yeah, it's imperfect, but when was the last time you saw useful perfection? So I might toss and turn, but I'll sleep easy on election night and wake up to play my part in the very worst system of government except all the others. All right, that's more or less the political content, so I can switch up to something different. Oh, that was a Churchill line for the keen people. Yep, you got it? Yeah, thank you. Onto it. So, yeah, what are we feeling? What's the vibe? We're done with the politics, I reckon, although everything is political. Life is political. What are the options? Okay, I can give you one about parenthood. I can give you one about dishwashing. I can give you one about identity. I can give you one about consumerism. Online, I'll let. Or maybe it's more about the vibe. Are we feeling light or are we feeling dark? One of each: a dishwasher, a consumerism, an identity. One of light and dark. Okay, cool. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah. Light, dark. Paul, actually, you nailed light, dark, I reckon. So. Maybe that's not such a hard thing for me. No, I can't do it. I'll leave that for you. Okay, I will do dishwashing and parenthood, because I got the parent from here. All right, let me find dishwashing. All right. Have I told her that... This is also a love poem. I should have said that. Maybe you wouldn't have voted for it. Sucked in. It's happening. No, okay. Have I told her that she does the dishes like she's on year 8 camp and stacks the dishwasher like she's never played a game of Tetris? But when I'm with her, all the mucky stuff is washed away and everything fits together perfectly, like rows of sparkling dinner plates. Have I told her that? The part about the washing up, well, yeah, all the time. Peer over the sink, assess her rinsing skills, spill past her to rearrange bowls on the bottom tray. No, the nice part. Have I told her that? Well, we've said a lot in 11 years. Sung bird calls for young flirts in Martin Place. Shark tongue lashing that time I let her down. Silent words scratched on paper when I thought she couldn't hear me, and now soft whispers so we don't wake the baby. But have I told her that? Big pause. Like the Fisher and Paykel stopped mid-cycle, mind cycling through all the times we recycled arguments without substance. Like trying to clean flimsy paper plates in a dishwasher. And when 11 turns into 22.55, there'll be no Lifetime Achievement Award for dishwashing excellence, Bosch certified Whirlpool wizard, knives with knives, forks with forks, no intercutlery fraternizing permitted. Nah, when it all comes out in the wash, it's me and her, laid bare, still warm like 2 spoons. And we won't be like those other spoons, handles slumped on opposite sides of the basket. No, we'll be that beautiful aged silver teaspoon and well-loved ceramic soup spoon stacked together, still embracing through the rain, hail, and mega rinse setting. Because, let me tell you, when I'm with you, everything that matters fits together and the rest is washed away. All right. How good are dishwashers? All right. I've previously shared this anecdote, which I will, as my last ad-lib, and then move into my final poem. But when, like many people, over Christmas, had the opportunity to finally see family, brother and sister interstate, parents together and us. And for some reason, I think to defuse some family tension, I decided it'd be a good moment for me to do a poem in front of my family, and it was the dishwasher poem. And which is like quite frankly tonight, is it's often kind of more intimate and intimidating to do a small context poetry than it is to do in a big room. But I did that poem, and then at the end, my dad kind of quite earnestly was like, "Yeah, Tom, I know what you mean. I really feel that." And I'm like, "Oh, John, yeah, preach. Tell me what's on your mind." And he's like, "My Fisher and Paykel stopped mid-cycle one time." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. You're talking about your dishwasher, not your love with my mum, but that's fine, you know." Anyway, it's relatable. Everyone relates to dishwashing, yeah, and love. Okay, so this one is called The Motivational Poet. I claimed it's about parenthood. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Seems like my claims have been untrustworthy at best, but here we go. And thank you so much for having me along. It's been awesome. And I'm looking forward to coming back to another West Side event. That was like, like invite me back. All right. As a kid, I had a big head, like physically. Everyone used to call me man-child, but also in the other sense. Every day I woke up knowing I could change the world. These days I feel like that some days, but other days I feel like the only thing I could change is my daughter's nappy. Like even she thinks I'm full of shit. Sorry, boys, again. And also, my daughter's out of nappies now, just like a segue to congratulate my daughter. Well done. It's on those days that I call on the motivational poet. And here's what I tell myself. Either you can like Obama, or you can't like Emmanuel. Either way, action is a must, imperative, categorical. So act now, poet, act now with your folklorical flow from the oracle, neo-radical, and your words stick like caramel. Yes, you're magic like Copperfield, with no tricks like Copperfield. Organic like chlorophyll, fanatic, the proper deal. And I see you're on the grind like a flour mill, and we'll fight the power still with mind open like a flower will, and find hope with every tower built. Yeah, poet, you're ill. Like the cause of the day where you pay for a daffodil. By this point, I'm buoyant. I'm bouncing. I'm folding filled nappies like handmade tortellinis, and then my big head starts thinking again about changing the world. Thoughts unfurl, pearls of grandeur like business empire or elected position. Redefine the very fabric of our economic system. But then the world is like, stop, listen. Yeah, the world, she's thinking more like, do we really need another dude who wants to change us? Nah, ease up, motivational poet. What the world needs is a dude who wants to change his daughter's nappies. Thank you very much.
That last poem is one of my favorite poems of all time. Okay, so usually we end with our magnificent feature, but I would like to perform now. And yes, it's the 6 minutes poem, and when I finish it, you'll be like, oh, I get why she left this for the last. All right, let me just get it up. Should have. Aww. Thank you. I'm so not used to people. Yeah, thanks for taking photos. Yeah. Just trying to do my CD trick too. If you guys wonder, like, why the hell does she use CDs? It gives you cool rainbow effects and reflections. Anyways, you shall see when I upload the album on Facebook. Okay. Do. Intermission song as I scroll up to the beginning of my poem. All right, we found it. I am terrified. My family will spontaneously book us flights to Turkey, and I'll only have a few days to download Duolingo and relearn the entire language. Otherwise, I will be confined to a floral seat in a living room that seeps the smell of old people, bored out of my mind at relatives too extended for me to care about. Where other people's weight is a legit topic with an incredulous nonchalance. I ask my mother why and how they still like me despite being a shadowy shell of myself. She replies, because I always have a smile ready. Which feels like an offset for my sister's RBF. She gets people bitching about way too much. I think of passing strangers and how a smile makes me smile. Am offered this band-aid comfort, then rip it off. I am loud shouts and shrill trills. I talk too fast. I train people around me to keep up. I am not awkward silences. A gravedigger fumbling around in the dark for words they buried long ago. When they ask me what I'm studying, aside from yazı, writing, the words teatro, for look, graphic tazarum, feel like cheat codes borrowed from the known with an accent. Seem to further expose they do not fit the mold of prescribed ethnic careers, while in the other corner, I eavesdrop on my dad, smoothing my choices over like butter. The calmest he has ever talked about it was when professing to some extended family member we wouldn't see again for another few years. Yet makes me out to be a villain through his incessant rants to his mother who helped raise me in a foreign to us all country. As she hugs me goodbye, she says, "Now what I'm about to say might make you upset, which is always a bad precursor. Choose a good degree and job." As if I'm not halfway through uni, I let go of her. At this year's Australian Poetry Slam National Final, I am joined at the back of the auditorium by the father of a 12-year-old competitor who had flown in from Victoria. As she walks up to the mic, I watch this dad close his eyes, head down, resting on clasped hands, and you can just tell he is praying to all the gods there are that his little girl performs without a hitch. And I begin to silently cry because, wow, I will never in my lifetime have that. My dad would hang his head in his hands in shame instead. As he cheers for her, I also cheer for him. At the end of the night, he approaches me to thank me for my work as program coordinator. I say it's really nice seeing how supportive you are of your daughter, but cannot help my eyes leak. Not wanting to make this about me, I will my tears to duck back into my ducks. This is the same night Tom Kaldor said on stage, "The world doesn't need another man to change it. The world needs a father to change his daughter's nappies," to my standing ovation. Men are both barely complimented and commended for the bare minimum. But if that's what it takes for better men and good fathers, I will do it anyways. I unearthed the memory of me, age 13, in my grandparents' living room. My dad asks me what I was doing. Writing a book on my tablet. He gives me an affirming "aferin." I probably remember this because of the embarrassment, humor, and guilt of it being a makeout scene, but became a core memory because of the different reality. When did this stop being a cute novelty for my age and reality kick in? Who knew that there would be poetry in me having to call my mum up to ask how to spell "well done" in Turkish? The only compliment I ever received since then regarding the rebel I am pursuing the arts was a surprising car ride when he randomly said, in effect, he had to hand it to me, he admires my efforts. And I've held this in a tight fit since. If I cannot be commended for my choices, at least I can for my stubborn persistence. I remember the moment he first made clear that even if I was successful as an artist, he would be ashamed. As his hand fell to slam down the table, so did my crest. All this time, I thought it was just best intention, first-generation immigrant pride and concern, lesson learned. Turns out it goes deeper than that. I've wondered if I could write and perform a poem in Turkish, if he might understand, appreciate, know me, love me, support me. This is not that poem. This is a poem about never knowing if he would show me how or scowl, because I should know by now. Hell hath no fury like a father disappointed. His patience worn as thin as my waist with the eating disorder he bestowed upon me, so I shut up and it got worse. It is not just a language barrier, but communication too. When he asks my sister or I to fetch him a tool from the garage with an unfamiliar word, we do not risk asking him to clarify in English. Instead, hope to God we find it regardless, or run into mom, or have our phones to translate. My strategy is to ask what color it is. We risk feeling like a tool to avert, abort, avoid, despite the less likely but worse risk of returning empty-handed. Worst case scenario, just say you couldn't see it. He gets mad at us for not asking, but never acknowledges the reason why. He can't see it. Fear. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Little intertextual thing going on. All right. Thank you guys so much for a lovely night.